This is Live Stream Insiders. We bring you the very latest news all about the world of video and live streaming. And this is for the week beginning or the week ending, whichever way you plan your 7 days of the 3rd of July 2016. My name is Peter Stewart, and together with my co-host this week, we're going to be exploring all sorts of news that's been around in the world of live streaming, what Martha Stewart's been up to, also a few ideas about monetization as well, the pros and cons of live streaming, and also some updates to some apps as well. Our goal is to bring you the very latest up-to-date news. We scour the internet, all sorts of websites and pages. We've got various setups of RSSs and Google Newses and so on, all about the emerging technology as it appertains to live streaming. And we value your minutes, we value your megs, and that means that you've only got to put aside 30 minutes. Now, 29 minutes to go. Krishna, you've got a bit of an update as well to start off with.
Yeah, so in the spirit of experimentation, because that's one of the things that's a little bit different about us, Peter's a broadcaster and also an author of many books on the world of journalism. But I'm actually a digital communications person and a social media educator. And we constantly experiment. So in the journey of experimentation, we thought it would be interesting to try some things out. So we have been hosting our show on Blab, and that's why we've actually moved to a different platform. And today we've had an interesting journey and we've ended up here on Fire Talk. And so we're going to be here for a couple of weeks and then we'll decide where we want to go next. But there's so many things that are changing, but we wanted to bring you on a journey with us. So you get the chance to see some of these platforms and experiment with us. What we are also looking for in terms of a live stream inside is we like to have a platform where there's two of us, but we also can bring in guests, because we've had some really great guests over the 40 plus weeks that we've been doing this show, including the BBC, the National News Organisation of RTE from Ireland, police forces in the US and the UK, the Mayo Clinic, and I could go on and on with some brilliant guests that we've had with us. So that's one of the things that we want to do, and we hope that you'll give us feedback in terms of the experimentation, because that's what we do all the time, test new apps, test new things, really, so that you don't have to do as much testing either. Now on to the news though, Peter.
Yeah, well, we'll start off with, they always say, don't they, content is king. And you know what, with all of these different platforms, with all of these different apps, there's a heap load of content out there. But if content is king, then a lot of it is rubbish, isn't it? Let's be totally honest with you. And there's been a really interesting article on tubefilter.com, we'll share the link a little bit later on, that says all of these platforms, whether it be Fire Talk or whether it be YouNow or whether it be Periscope or Facebook Live or Lively or any of the others, not only is it content, but it's got to be really, really good content. And Ronald C. Pruitt, his hand in glove with Al Roker in the United States. And of course, as we know, Al has set up his own kind of independent company to try and monetize the world of live streaming. Well, Ronald Pruitt is with him, and I've had a couple of talks with Ron over the past 18 months or so, and he is suggesting that some of the best people who could really get to grips with live streaming and who could really float to the top of this world are people who are into talk radio, who listen a lot, who maybe already are presenters on radio or on talk radio. Essentially, he says these are personalities who can hold people for hours on end and can multitask like mad while talking in an intimate fashion to a big audience. So there's some of the skills that Ron and Al have identified as necessary. Kayvon himself, Kayvon Bekpour, who's the CEO of Periscope, says it is audience interaction which is the key element of this whole world of live streaming. And this article from TubeFilter goes on to say that everyone's got to adapt. Everyone's got to try and make the most of their personality if they're going to get on in the live streaming world. But also advertising's got to adapt as well. And they've been outlining some of the different elements of the kind of advertising that that could be working. more all show sponsors, so to have the whole show sponsored by one particular brand, or branded content, or something that we were talking about a little bit earlier on as we were kind of getting our act together today, and that's the graphic overlays. But also we could add into that the live reads of sponsor messages. So if you want to read more about that, it's on tubefilter.com, and a bit later on in our show today, we've got a few more ideas about how Facebook Live is going to be trying to monetize the whole shebang of live streaming as far as they're concerned.
In fact, because we're here on Fire Talk, it's worthwhile noting that's one of the things that they've looked at in terms of how content providers can actually monetize their shows, the same as on Huzza. So there are two applications that you might want to look at, two platforms where they're actually building in monetization for you as a live stream host. So you might want to look at that. But the other thing I always want to say is we always have a little bit of legalese in here. Neither of us are lawyers. But remember, if you're going to have a sponsor, make sure you look at the advertising standards in whatever market you're in. It's different in different countries. If you're in the US, it's the FTC. If it's in Ireland, it's the ASA. Whatever it might be, look at that, because there are guidelines. It's not just you can have a sponsor and then not disclose it. So the next thing is, though, Facebook Live. You know, I was reflecting back on our last episode, and in fact, even looking at what we've got coming up, we've got a lot of Facebook Live news, and that's not surprising in terms of the constant changes they're making and all the case studies that have been written about in terms of organizations using it. But not everybody is saying we should be jumping into Facebook Live. Now, one of the things that Peter and I are really excited about in the future is that Facebook Live is going to have the ability for us to interview somebody else or have somebody in. Now, we don't know how it's going to work. We know it's going to be available really to big verified pages and celebrities in the first instance. However, that's something that we've got our eye on. And I'm sure that's the case with other people. But not everybody thinks that we should actually jump into there. And there was an article that we came across in terms of why we should be thinking twice about jumping into Facebook Live. And there's a few things. This is over on Forbes. We may or may not disagree with this, and the same for yourselves. You may have a different view. But the first thing that they talk about is reach. The fact that actually it's not good enough just to post your content over onto Facebook, because we know that there's some actually challenges there in terms of reach. In fact, just this week, Facebook themselves have announced another change to the newsfeed. And we do know that in other content, we really need to have to pay to play in terms of, and they've said themselves, we have to advertise if we want to have reach. Live video has been doing very well, but I'm sure with this most recent update, there may be some challenges. But the comment that was made is about in terms of compare it to YouTube. And it's a really good point, because if you're following people on YouTube, and if you're a producer of content on YouTube, one of the things you can do as a producer is when you're actually publishing your content, you can say, do I want to notify my subscribers? But everybody who subscribes to your channel can choose the kind of notifications they get. So for a lot of actually channels that I subscribe to on YouTube, which is how I get to hear about news very quickly from key channels, is that I subscribe and I get an email notification, because I'm not on YouTube all the time, but I do actually check my email all the time. So they're saying compare it to YouTube, because where it's built on YouTube, it's about subscriptions and not friendships. And as we know, with the recent change with the algorithm on Facebook, it is really going to be paying more attention to content from friends. I've seen lots of content this week that I have been missing in the past from people I've not heard about from years. I'm actually now seeing in my newsfeed all of a sudden. The second thing they say is about tools. And remember that on Facebook, that views are actually counted as that video is just a 3-second versus, I know you get good analytics is my point of view, although they were a little bit dismissive in the article about the analytics from Facebook. If you're managing Facebook Live off a Facebook page, you do get pretty robust analytics. If you're doing it from a profile, you don't. So that's just the one thing to know. And I know a lot of people have been using their profiles for Facebook Live. And of course, then you've got to compare that to YouTube for detailed analytics. My only suggestion to you there is think about when is it, for what content, use your Facebook page, and then you'll get all the Facebook analytics there. And the last thing they said there is about monetization and the ability to be paid. And they've actually said on Facebook is they're going to be working with people there. And of course, in creators, not yet everywhere in the world. In the US, though, you actually can have a split of revenue with YouTube. And so there's some of the things. So I guess it's worthwhile just taking into consideration what the right platform is, but an alternative point of view about those three things to watch out for if you're thinking about jumping into Facebook Live, which are basically reach, tools, and monetization.
Well, everyone is jumping on Facebook Live and other live streaming apps, and we already know that one of the things which works really, really well, whether it be live streaming or whether it be Instagram or Pinterest or any of these other platforms, and that is food. People love to talk about food. People love to see food. People love to see some fantastic pictures of food. People love to see people making food and eating food. Well, any wonder then that Martha Stewart has decided, yes, she is still going. Martha Stewart, no relation, incidentally, although presumably she must be long lost. So hopefully, you know, so some of that money will kind of filter down some stage. She is all over Facebook Live. So she's done quite a few Facebook Lives over the last few months. But, however, she's got a bit of a complaint, and this goes back to something we've spoken about many times before, including about 10 minutes ago, and that is, where's the money coming from? Because she's very, very careful about advertising, you know, and having a specific advert, which Facebook aren't very keen on at the moment. However, they are okay with mentions and product placements and things like that. Why don't they like the full-blown adverts? Because they won't be getting a cut if you put an advert in. So they're trying to work out exactly how the two can work together, how they can place an advert in your stream. They get most of the money, or virtually half of the money, and you get the rest of it. Anyway, back to Martha Stewart. So she has been, as I say, experimenting on Facebook Live, and there was a recent stream where she made a roasted red snapper with hollandaise sauce. Fortunately, I've already eaten today, but otherwise my mouth would be drooling at that. And she had 1,500 live viewers. It's a drop in the ocean, isn't it, for Martha Stewart, who, of course, used to be coast to coast across America and beyond as well. And recently, when they went back to check, it had 105,000 viewers all told. But what she's doing with that is it's not necessarily the quantity, as Barb was saying a little bit earlier on, but it's the quality, because what she is able to do is, of course, get into other dominions, into other territories where usually people don't know of Martha Stewart. So she's reaching out to an international audience. Plus, of course, it's saving her an awful lot of time, an awful lot of effort, and an awful lot of money, because she's not having to hire a big studio. Essentially, it's just one camera operator with an iPhone 6 Plus. So it's a fraction of the budget, but getting quite a reasonable reach to people who she hasn't reached before. Martha Stewart is 75. I know, right? And she says it's efficient and it's economical, but she does want a way that she can get some monetization from the programs that she is giving to Facebook. So that's interesting. If you want to know more about that, it's the wallstreetjournal.com who've been talking about Martha Stewart. But what's really, really interesting, Krishna, as we've been looking at over the past few weeks, in fact, these are coming out more and more often, are these user case studies of how different companies, how different organizations, how different firms and businesses are using live streaming, the kinds of programs they're putting on, the number of staff they've got, what their reach is, what their audience figures are. And you've got some more stats right now, haven't you, from Refinery 29, which is, I understand, a kind of fashion, health, beauty organization.
Absolutely. And in fact, what we've been talking about for a number of weeks is about, as you mentioned, Peter, the number of people that they've been actually building in their team. And so this article actually talks in really quite good depth. In fact, you'll find it over in Digiday, and all the links will be posted over on Twitter as well for the articles that we're talking about. But in this, they've actually been building in fact, they're on their way to building a 10-person Facebook Live team. 10 people. Now, that is not unusual for a number of publishers that we've looked at. So we've seen lots of people between 8, 12, 15. So in terms of on this team, they've actually got 5 people in place from the social and the video teams that they've actually reallocated into it, but they want to grow that number. They're doing 15 live videos every week across 8 different Facebook pages. And one of the things they're looking at is a different format for actually creating content. So rather than actually just looking at their smartphones, they want to look at more polished, I guess we'd talk about kind of higher production values in terms of their live streams, better quality cameras, and actually building studios all for that as well. And they said, we want to have the highest level that we can. What can we do to have high quality video in 24 hours? And they also have got a team, which actually was quite substantial as well. Again, not unusual from what we've talked about in the past, is their Snapchat team is actually an 8-person team as well. And they've said, really an interesting quote for me from the article is, you need to be as strategic. But if Facebook Live isn't in the top 15% of things you're looking at to develop for your video strategy in the next year, you're making a mistake. So if you are in the business of communications, if you're in the business of brand journalism, if you're in the business of regular journalism, you might want to take a look at that case study. And they have actually pretty substantial numbers of views in terms of their content versus other channels as well. So you'll find that article over at Digiday.
And that's really interesting. I want to repeat that quote again, actually. You need to be strategic, but if Facebook Live isn't in the top 15% of things you're looking to develop for your video strategy in the next year, you'll be making a mistake. That's really interesting. Incidentally, also from that article, they say they focus on 3 key areas, and they go into a bit more depth in this article. They focus on stunts, serviceable content, and event coverage, and they got several examples for each of those, and that they travel to various events. They go to the Tony Awards and things like that, and they say that most of their live videos get between 40 and 60,000 views. That's 40,000 and 60,000 views on Facebook, which is lots of times more than Martha Stewart is getting. And in fact, one of them about drag queens got 175,000 views within the first 48 hours. That really is a very good article. It's at digiday.com, and we'll pop the link on a little bit later on. I am not aware of the work of a lady by the name of Samantha B. You may very well be. T'other side of the pond that we call the Atlantic, but Samantha B apparently has a program on TBS, I don't know, called Full Frontal. Sounds kind of interesting. Full Frontal, and she's going to be bringing some of it onto Facebook, certainly for 10 minutes, kind of behind the scenes. It's an edgy comedy show apparently, and it gears up as they gear up for taping in front of a live studio audience. They're going to be on Facebook Live. They say we've got so much to put into 30 minutes that frankly we can't fit it all in. So some of it is going to be put directly onto Facebook Live. And their quote from the Vice President of Content for Time Warner / TBS is, "It's a great way for people like Sam and others to connect with their audiences in a new way. Facebook Live is very intimate and very immediate." That's quite good, isn't it? Intimate and immediate. I'll make a note that I'm going to be using that line again. Intimate and immediate. And it's a good way for us to add additional heft and scale to what we're doing actually on ordinary traditional broadcast TV.
Well, we carry on. We'll talk about Facebook for a little while. Because, of course, there's been a stockholder meeting, and Mark Zuckerberg was actually outlining the plans for Facebook going forward. And so there were 3 things around the monetization stages, if you haven't come across them. Firstly, build a product that people love. Secondly, provide free tools for businesses to broaden the app behaviors beyond just interacting with friends. And thirdly, provide paid options to help businesses monetize the platform. And this article is over at Social Media Today. And one of the things that's actually you'll find over at Social Media Today is that they do have some unique content. So it's not just reposting from other places that they may have done perhaps in the past. So there's a really in-depth article that you can find over there. And they're saying that Live is really at the first stage of the cycle of development at this point in time. They're really working on building the product that people love, but that has its own challenges in terms of content. And then in terms of seeing live streaming grow, it needs to provide compelling content. We keep coming back to that. It essentially needs high-profile creators regularly uploading content, which is why they started off with celebrity-only option. Let me just tell you about something, Peter. I don't know if you saw this in my Facebook content earlier today. But actually something that struck me, and some people might know the artist Seal, the musician.
Yeah.
And that for me it's probably one of the best pieces of content I've seen yet. And Seal is actually on tour in the UK. And I didn't realize he'd started off singing as a busker on the streets and then obviously made it into stardom. Well, he went around with Facebook Live yesterday with his phone, nothing fancy, literally just his phone. And he was on the streets of Manchester, and what he did is he actually captured a really good busker, a really brilliant busker. And he got so much good content and feedback from people, giving lots of reactions on Facebook, that he then approached her. And so the next Facebook Live is about a conversation with her, and he introduced himself. He says, "Oh, I'm Seal." And she was taken aback. And he said, "Can I busk with you? Would you mind?" They have a conversation then in real time about what songs she knows. And so what were the songs that she understood and she knew? And so one of the things that happened next is that they busked together. And so that was amazing. He got so much feedback again from people that he then invited her to the venue he was going to. And on Facebook Live, on a separate Facebook Live, he started to learn a little bit about her. And he says, "You know what? I've been a mentor on The Voice. I'm really behind trying to kind of help people come through. You don't have to have it just through TV channels anymore. I wonder if there's something we could do." He said, turned over to the people off camera and said, "You know, who's opening for us tonight?" And he said, "I wonder if there's a way that we could open for us tonight. Have you got a set that you could do? And could you be here for 8:00? What's she going to say? Yes. So my little post was basically from the street to the stage. And I think that was just really engaging. He really kind of enamored himself with his fans. I wonder what I could do. I wonder what we could do together, Peter, to be as compelling in terms of that content.
It was really creative, wasn't it? And really kind of pushed the boat out. And that's what we're talking about. As you know, that's what I started talking about right at the beginning of the show. Yes, there's tons and tons of content out there. However, how much of it is actually going to be breaking through? How much of it is actually going to be creative? And once you've done something creative once, can you spin that out a little bit more? How soon does it die a bit of a death? It's really interesting.
And what's that done for me? I don't know what it's done for you, Peter, but it's actually made me rethink. It's probably going to get me to go and listen to some of his music again. It might get me to download some of his music again. It's got me to check out this new potential artist. There's probably a record deal coming in the offing for her at some stage. So it's had an impact on so many of us. And I think just the comment I made into the post I referenced around it was the fact that I think it was great that somebody like him just offered his own platform. And every one of us has got a platform that actually we could offer other people to. So I think it was really interesting content, definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely. Well, let's continue with that particular article that Krishna was talking about. This is via Social Media Today, and they've got someone to kind of look under the hood of Facebook and Facebook Live, and they found some really interesting things. And that is, let me just show this to you. What they've been able to find is a whole list of things like this. Now, if you look closely at that, you'll see words. I can't see them now, of course, because it's pointing towards the actual the camera. But lots of things to do with overlays and brakes and bumpers and things like that, which kind of gives the impression that adverts and commercial breaks aren't too far away, because they've already behind the scenes putting those elements right there, ready to press the go button on. So they reckon commercial breaks during live streams will be featuring video adverts. As I say, all those elements already there. And this particular article is saying live broadcasts have always been a major draw card for broadcasters. If they can provide such without the huge expense of a traditional live TV production, and if they can reach a large audience off their own bat and include commercial breaks to pay for it all, then Facebook Live will have the great attention of a great many producers and publishers as well. And a bit more than that, if you think, what on earth can Facebook Live do soon? Well, there's a couple of other things. You know, the polls on Twitter, and you know the doodling on Periscope, I should say. Well, there are some more little screen grabs featuring some ideas there about doodling and also some polls as well. So Facebook is not going to be left behind on the march in any way, shape or form. Krishna, 5 minutes left. If we want to crack through the last final news items this week, it's over to you.
Yeah, a couple of things to pay attention to. We talked last time about Lively that had been launched from Musical.ly. One thing might be interesting is just the volume of downloads. They already have had over 500,000 downloads, really usurping most other apps in the App Store. Just shows in terms of build a platform where you've got a lot of users, launch it on something else, you've got a lot of people who are going to come with you. So one to watch out for. I did test it out, as we talked about in the previous episode. You can go back and have a look at it there. The other one that caught my attention was something that was being developed by somebody who's actually in Scotland. Centric Video. I had really mixed feelings about this, Peter. What about you?
I thought it was really interesting. So what Centric seems to do, and I'll be interested on your views, Krishna, what Centric seems to do is to take a geographical area and then pull in all the live streams from that geographical area. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, hold on, you know, Periscope has got a map feature. If I want to know who's on Periscope in Paris right now, I scroll in, I go in and I pinch the screen and then I can see all the live and pre-recorded items or archived items on Periscope from Paris over the last 24 hours. But Centric goes one step further, because remember what I said right at the beginning about 20 seconds ago, it pulls in all the live streams from one particular area. So that could be Periscope, or it could be Facebook Live, or it could be YouTube, or any of those others. So anyone that's been broadcasting in a certain area, when you go onto the map, you'll be able to see all of those. So what he's doing is collating all of those live streams from all of the different platforms and presenting to them to you geographically. Originally, it was for news broadcasters. So if something, a big event happened, whether it be a natural disaster or maybe a shooting or a demo or something like that, news broadcasters will be able to go into exactly what the street was or what the block was or what the road or the city was and find anyone who is broadcasting in that area and then maybe view, contact them and with the potential to use their video and then maybe pay those streamers for the video which they then put on traditional telly. However, that didn't quite work out. So they're trying to find another way of making this work. So Krishna, what are your doubts? Can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. For some reason, I don't know why I wasn't broadcasting there. Anyway, I did test it out. And one of the things that I was finding unusual is that it wasn't just bringing in live content. It also brought in recorded content. And so I did some different searches, and you can go into the app, download it, and you can put a geographic search in an area you're in or even move it to a different location. So I tested that. And I was finding just regular YouTube videos coming up in some of it. And obviously it's down to the fact of whether or not somebody's identified a location.
Right.
So at one stage, I was thinking about it. I'm not sure if I want this. And particularly in terms of, yes, there's one argument that says it gives you more reach, it gets you more potential viewers. But the thing for me is about actually making sure that it links back to the original source, because nobody wants to have their content, let's say, taken. And so the article that we were looking at in terms of the IB Times did say that anybody could get more distribution, and one key sector would be such as the music industry. And their view is to actually look to really improve the app going forward. I guess the jury's out for me. I think it could get you some more distribution. I'm just a little bit unsure at this point in time. I'd really want to be convinced that there wasn't anything going on there where people's rights were not being honoured, as in content scraped.
Okay, that's about it. We have just over a minute to go, so it's high time we kind of drew this edition of Live Stream Insiders, episode number 40, to a close. Unfortunately, we don't have time to tell you how Al Jazeera, the TV news broadcaster, has been using Facebook Live. They recently tested it for 24 hours. And you know what? I've got 3 pages of notes to bring you, again, about what they learned, what they would do differently another time, and what they would do the same another time and strengthen, and what their team was like and what their content was. you know what, you'll just have to join us in 7 days when Live Stream Insiders comes back and we broadcast again the very latest news from the world of live streaming.
In terms of joining us next week, you'll find us on Fire Talk. Do check out the link in the show. And also, if you head over to Twitter, LS Insiders on Twitter, we'll always post our links there. And of course, you'll find Peter over at Tweet Stewart and myself at Krishna Day. Thanks so much for joining us. Let us know what you think about the experience of us being here in terms of being on Fire Talk. We look forward to hearing your success stories too. Peter, hope you have a great week.
Yeah, so as we usually say, thank you very much indeed for the loan of your eyes and your ears over the past hour or so. Thanks very much indeed. So we'll be back in 7 days' time, 7 o'clock London time and Dublin time as well. Hope I pointed the right way. And we'll bring you the latest news, all to do with live streaming.